Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to The Talk Show. I'm your host, Raphael Levan, and I'm so proud to be part of the broad community effort to elevate and upgrade the way we speak to one another with timeless lessons of Jewish mindful speech. Did you ever have the experience of traveling far from home, in another city entirely, and then unexpectedly you see someone you know from home? Not a close friend, just an acquaintance. But you see each other in this foreign place, and you're familiar, so you greet each other warmly. That same person, if you bumped into them at home, you wouldn't necessarily say anything to them. Connections are so important to us. In the NCAA championships, my next door neighbor and I will be at each other's throats. But if the Broncos are in the Super Bowl, we'll be arm in arm. My East Coast relatives will still be rooting against me. But when the American ice hockey team is going for gold in the Olympics, we'll be arm in arm. We all have our points of connection, which bring us together. Community is so important to us. When we recognize how connected we are, despite our differences, we will find it easier to hold ourselves back from onas devarnim, from speaking badly of one another. And that's our goal and the strength of our community. Tonight on the show, we'll be featuring our local clean speech champions, Werner and Holden Demain, wordsmiths Chaya Lester and Ari Lesser, another wonderful story by Rav Friedman, and our co-host Adrienne Davis, who will be interviewing author and Obama administration speechwriter Sarah Hurwitz. If you've missed any of the previous episodes of The Talk Show or any of the daily lessons, you can go now to cleanspeechcolorado.org and sign up and access it all. We would like to extend our sincere gratitude to everyone who has sponsored and contributed to the campaign. First, Amy Toltz Miller has dedicated the Clean Speech Colorado 2020 campaign in loving memory of her parents, Ruth and Warren Toltz. The Art Harris Trust, the Steinberg Family Foundation, Jewish Colorado, Ronnie and Sandra Schiff, Sintra Pollock, Ron Werner of HW Home, Rob Klugman, Ken and Judy Friednash, Wendy Greenwald, Tova Kava, and the Eastside Kosher Deli. Thank you. Also like to thank those who've dedicated the 30-day lessons and to everyone who's contributed. Special shout out to the Clean Speech Colorado team for all their hard work making this whole campaign possible. Now let's get started with today's show. I'm happy to welcome Chaya Lester.
Every place is a palace if you just add an A. Just add a letter with intention and you have made a mansion with each mention of the grandeur of your friend. Reflect that lofty vision back to them and you will see whole communities grow wings and rise up wise before your very eyes. Each word uttered can make the utter difference between a pauper or a queen. Just look at children to really understand what I mean. Build me, our children scream. In Hebrew, children are banim, are builders. And buildings, literally, constructed by the beams of our murmurings. They are built with the stones we intone and the daily drone of our speech. Best be careful what we preach. And not just our children, but every millionth member of every local minyan built like a binyan, a building made of wooden words. And wood they were, made of nothing less than the very best quality of positivity. Look at this. With your kind words, you can take the A out of beast and simply help your friend be their best. Add a sly S to a word and you get a sword. Add an L and you get the world. Here's another. When I turns to we, even illness turns to wellness. You see? Don't litter, just choose a brighter letter to make the world better. With every word we say, we have the power to build or slay. So build something beautiful, express your inner architect with those bricks of your breath, build some temples with all that dialect, raise a mansion with each word you mention, build up your family, your children, you'll make them shine with your rhyme, one good word at a time. I'm Chaya Lester, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Chaya Lester, for your lyrical words and your beautiful Clean Speech Colorado poems. I'd like to welcome to the show now Clean Speech champion Ron Werner. Ron was involved in our Clean Speech Colorado campaign of 2019, and he hosted some of our opening events at HW Home in Denver and in Boulder. We're happy to have him on the show.
This year, Clean Speech Colorado is focused on onus devarim, or hurtful words. From my HW home to your home, can we take a moment to pause and think about the power of words? As a business leader and as a community leader, I have the gift of pursuing multiple passions. I work in my business to feed my body, and I work in the Jewish world to feed my soul. One guiding precept in Judaism is tikkun olam, the healing or repairing of the world, literally the act of making the world a better place. However, before we can heal the world, we need to heal ourselves. So I believe we should also focus on tikkun Yisrael and tikkun bayit. We must first heal our people Israel, and we must start in the bayit. We must start in the home. As children, we're taught that sticks and stones may break our bones, but words will never hurt us. Is this really true? No, words can hurt, and hurtful words can last indefinitely. Living in the internet age truly changes this reality. Living in this period of rapid-firing words should make us think more about onus devarim. We should think more about hurtful words. Every day we see awful, painful tweets. Every day we see anonymous postings harming others. Every day we see visceral hatred and anger. Is this the world we want to be part of? I think not. If we want to live in a more civilized society, then we need to make a decision. We need to make a decision to work hard, to do more, to be better. We need to make a decision to think before we speak. It starts at home and then continues throughout our day. We need to think before we speak. We need to pause. We need to take a breath before we open our mouths and allow words to fall out callously. We need to think of who we are talking to, and we need to think about them and their feelings. Some words defeat a person's psyche, and sometimes they lead to tragedy. 25 years ago, a young Jewish extremist was so driven by hateful words, was so infuriated from rhetoric, that he assassinated Yitzhak Rabin. Onus devarim. Hurtful words can do more than hurt. Words are powerful. They can bring people up or take people down. Can we as a community commit to raising people up? Let's take our lessons from Clean Speech Colorado to focus on clean speech, to focus on speech without onus devarim, to focus on taking the hurt out of our words. Friends, join me. Join Clean Speech Colorado to think of others in our homes and others in our streets. Tikkun olam, tikkun Yisrael, tikkun bayit. Make the world better at home and better in our community. I'm Ron Werner, president and co-founder of HW Home and president of the Alexander Muss High School in Israel, and I'm keeping it clean.
There's a pollution that's so imperceptible, barely detectable, seen as acceptable. It's infiltrated our homes, our schools, offices, neighborhoods, even our schools. No one's protected. It strikes unexpectedly, affecting us separately and collectively. Seen it before, yet we still forget, letting down our guard to this dangerous threat. It's not in the water, it's not in the air, it's not underground, yet it's found everywhere. And throughout the week, there's risk of a leak. Each time that we open our mouth up to speak, the toxin I'm touching on is lush and horror, that evil speech reaching wherever we are. A person should be concerned with contamination, creeping, seeping into each conversation. But we can fight back if we all make a pact to practice this mitzvah and clean up our act with our powers combined. Let's try and refine our minds and words one line at a time.
I love those raps that Ari does. Ari, thank you so much for being with us on the show. Next up, we have another great story from our friend Rav Gav Friedman from Jerusalem.
Many a year ago, I had the privilege of being in a high school. It was a privilege for the high school that was to have me until they asked me to leave. But I want to share with you a story that happened with me when I was in the 9th grade. For the Canadians listening, that would be grade 9. Now, I think I was maybe 13, 14, something along that. And I decided one day, I am not going to talk the entire day. Now, this was not a holy endeavor. This was not I am working on my Zen. This was simply, I was 14 years old. I just made up my mind. I was not going to talk. Now, I went to a Jewish day school. And in the morning, we had the prayer service. So I would pray. And if one of the teachers or the rabbis would talk with me, I would respond. That much I would do. assuming I like them. But if not for that, then no, then I was going to actually not talk the entire day. Okay, so what happens? I get there in the morning, and we have the prayer service. And after we pray Shachar, the morning prayer, we're sitting around and we're all by the breakfast table. There's a bunch of 14-year-old boys. It was an all-boys school. We're all sitting around together. And what are 14-year-old boys talking about? Come on, what are they talking about? I want you to actually answer the question. Think about it. What are 14-year-old boys talking about? Okay, I'm not sure what you're thinking, but we were speaking about things like world hunger, about the issues with the ozone layer. We were talking about war, and about how all of that affects girls. Anyway, what are we talking about? I don't even remember what we were talking about. But I remember one thing. I wasn't talking. And I recall that somebody said a comment. And when they said the comment, I felt myself wanting to respond. You know, like somebody says something, you want to be part of the whole conversation. I was about to respond. But as I was about to respond, I remembered I'm not talking. And I did something at that moment I don't think I had ever done before. And there are some that have claimed that I haven't done since. But what I did was I allowed my thought to bypass my mouth and go to my brain. And I actually thought about what I was about to say. And I remember thinking, why would I say that? I remember it was not something that would have been so positive, wasn't something that was so nice. And why would I say that? And I went through the day. And as the day went on, I felt myself wanting to respond, but not responding, wanting to respond, but not responding. And I kept having these ideas that I would have said. And I'll tell you something crazy. I'll be nice to myself if I were to say 50%, but I think it's closer to 90. 50% of what would have left my mouth had I been talking was either negative, derogatory, or just plain inappropriate. It certainly was not what we call clean speech. And I thought to myself, even at 14, I was able to finally realize how powerful words are. And how do we use our speech? It was an eye-opener. It was a serious eye-opener. And I'll tell you what it really woke me up to, because I had learned an amazing lesson. There's a lesson which is found in the writings of Judaism, and in particular what's known as a Mishnah, the greater body of work of the oral tradition. And it says over there in one of the books called Avot, chapter 1, the 17th teaching, there was a great rabbi who was known as Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, big rabbi, and he said the following statement: all my days I grew up in the home of amongst righteous people. All my days I grew up amongst holy, righteous sages. His father was like the chief rabbi. He said, all my days I grew up amongst righteous people. And the greatest character trait that I found out of all of them was silence, not talking. Here, this campaign of clean speech is speaking about be careful how we talk and let's make sure our speech is clean. You know what a prerequisite to clean speech is? Not speaking at all. In my yearbook when I was in elementary school, I had silence is golden, but I prefer silver. I spoke a lot. But over the years, I've learned, and I continue to learn, hopefully every day, but how powerful our words are. And if we would stop and just take it in, and just think about it for a moment, perhaps we wouldn't say what we were thinking, or we would say it a little bit differently. Dare I challenge the audience? I didn't get permission to do this, but I challenge each and every one of you to take a day. You have to answer your boss, your employers, employees, I got it. But those that you don't need to, take a day and try not to talk. And maybe you'll start to see also, what are we saying that will start to refine us to really get to this state of clean speech. I have to thank Rabbi Rafi Liban, and the whole team for making this happen. This is a tremendous project, and I am really, really honored that I was able to be part of it. Thank you so much. And continue, please, every one of us continue in our holy work of refining ourselves and getting to a real state of clean speech.
I'm delighted to welcome back to the show my co-host, Adrienne. Tonight, Adrienne is going to be interviewing Sarah Hurwitz, an author and a former speechwriter who really understands the impact that words can have, how to choose words wisely, and the nuances of words and their influence. We're delighted to have on the show our interview next with Adrienne and Sarah Hurwitz.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Clean Speech Campaign. I'm your host, Adrienne Gold-Davis, and I'm looking forward to exploring this fundamental principle for creating peaceful, respectful relationships. Now, Judaism has extremely high standards when it comes to the way we talk. Our tradition teaches us that the world was created with speech and that words truly do matter. And while it's intuitive to most conscious people that insults and careless, cruel language can be hurtful, did you know that our tradition also teaches that there are times when even kind words can cause pain or might provoke others to speak in an evil way about someone else? While the words lashon hara, evil speech, and ones devarim, hurtful words, are intuitive and understandable headings, there's also a category of speech called avak lashon hara. It means the dust of evil speech. And our sources give the following examples. Praising someone in front of their rival is forbidden because it can cause the listener to want to disparage the subject. Excessive praise is also forbidden, even from a public stage, because it can cause those who feel envy or insecurity to disparage the person that's being spoken about. Because like the drowning swimmer, oftentimes when we're insecure, we pull the rescuer underwater in order to hold ourselves up. So once, many years ago, I ran into an old employer whose father used to come into the office and visit his kid almost every single day of the week. And as it happened, I hadn't seen either my old boss nor his father in about 5 years. I ran into my boss. This is so shocking. And I start gushing to him. I saw your dad last week. Oh my God, we had such a fabulous conversation. He's such an amazing person. You're so lucky to have such a parent. And my old employer stared at me with utter contempt in his eyes. That's very nice for you, he sneered. But the old fool hasn't spoken to me in 3 years. And he stormed away. And I froze in place. This falls under the category of avak lashon hara. And I understood immediately that while I had no ill intent whatsoever, I had created a huge mess. So the mandate to not hurt or to cause pain with words is so nuanced and so complex that you could spend your lifetime studying the laws and still not cover all of it. And in every generation, it seems to become more complex as we learn that language we once used with impunity was actually very hurtful to others. We've been watching sports teams and even food brands change their corporate names as a response to these complaints. And it appears that we're at least attempting as a world to become increasingly sensitive to the power of the spoken and written word. So can you imagine how carefully chosen words must be from a political stage? How one's fans and one's detractors are going to analyze and measure every single word for meaning, even veiled or subliminal meaning? And when those words are broadcast into our homes or published in books, well, they can never be unspoken or unwritten. So who better to discuss this with than our guest today? From 2009 to 2017, Sarah Hurwitz served as a White House speechwriter, first as the senior speechwriter for President Barack Obama, and then as head speechwriter for First Lady Michelle Obama. Prior to serving in the Obama administration, Sarah was a chief speechwriter for Hillary Clinton on her 2008 presidential campaign. Sarah is a graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Law School, and she's the author of Here All Along, Finding Meaning, Spirituality, and a Deeper Connection to Life in Judaism after finally choosing to look there. Welcome, Sarah Hurwitz.
Hello. It is such a pleasure to be here with you, Adrienne. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, Sarah, any opportunity I have to pick your brain and to hear your wisdom is like a good day for me and for all of the people listening. So let's get right into it because I have so many questions for you. You are the perfect person, I think. So given that you have written for some of the most powerful people in the world, surely there must be some kind of system in place to vet those words, to scrub them, if you will, to look for potential triggers. What is that system? How are you part of it? And how does it work?
Yes, there were lots and lots of systems in place to scrub every line of every speech that I ever wrote. Because, we were always in the Obama administration very concerned about making sure that everything that the president and the first lady said was totally accurate and that it would never inadvertently hurt or offend someone. It's so easy to just use the wrong word to kind of talk about something that's a sensitivity in a community and to not even know it. So every speech I ever wrote, I would send it around to probably 40 or 50 people in the White House, and they would scrub every word of it. So our fact checker, if I started a speech by saying, hey, it's so great to be here with my friend, Mayor so-and-so, she's doing a great job, right? It's like, okay, whatever, totally innocuous. I might actually get an email from a fact checker saying, flag, Mrs. Obama has referred to the mayor as, quote, a friend, but how well do they know each other? How often do they see each other? Are they truly friends? Which you can say like, okay, on the one hand, you could say that's silly, but I really appreciated that, right? We really wanted to just be accurate all the time. So it went through a very, very careful scrub just to make sure it was accurate, that it was sensitive and respectful, and that none of it would be misunderstood or taken out of context.
Oh, wow. Well, I had a feeling that was the case, but still I have to ask you, was there ever a time that anything you wrote or had a hand in writing was actually taken to task? And how did you deal with it? What did it feel like? And how do you respond to that sort of thing? How did you as a speechwriter, how does the White House respond to that sort of thing? I mean, inadvertently, people make mistakes.
People make mistakes. Even the most careful fact-checking operation ever, you can miss things, right? Nobody is perfect. No human system is perfect. And, I can think of, there were certainly a few times when the wrong fact got out, and the way you handle it is you just immediately apologize and you correct it. I think that's really the way to do it. There was also I can think of one particular time when something was kind of taken out of context and it actually really bothered me, where Miss Obama was speaking to a group of children about healthy eating, which was a big issue that she worked on. And, she was talking on and on about, eating about balanced meals, lots of different nutritious foods, exercise. And then she also said, but you know what? Dessert is fun, right? Having dessert is part of the fun of being a kid. So it's okay to have dessert once in a while, right? That's fine. And then someone wrote an article about it that basically said, Michelle Obama says dessert is the stuff of life, or something like that. Like Michelle Obama says it's fine to have dessert a lot. I was like, wait a second, that was actually not the overall thrust of what she was saying. That was one thing that you took out of context to kind of make it a story, right? Make it newsy that this first lady who's promoting healthy eating, she's saying dessert is great. And for something like that, you don't want to draw more attention to it. You don't want to make a big deal. If it's something like that, you just let it go. But that bothered me because it didn't seem fair.
Tell me, because most people, when they begin their Jewish journey, learn about the laws of speech. Did it have any play in the way you crafted your words? Did it have any impact on the way you were thinking?
It's funny. It definitely had an impact on the way that I conducted myself personally in the White House, in terms of the emails I would send or the comments I would make. One of the things that really got to me when I was studying speech was, the scenario that you see contemplated in Jewish law where, you're frustrated with someone and you're annoyed at them. So you go and you call some other people and you're like, oh, she's so annoying. She's mean. I don't think she's honest. She's not doing a good job in our office. I'm frustrated. You get it off your chest, right? But the problem is, then you've just told a bunch of people some pretty unkind things about someone who you're frustrated with. And maybe those people tell people, maybe those people tell people. And, when you're working in a high pressure environment like the White House, it's easy to just get frustrated with someone or about something and to kind of, let off steam. And then a little later when you've cooled down to realize like, wow, I was intemperate. I said some things that I really don't mean, and I wish I hadn't. You can't really take it back. It's like, basically, it's like cutting open a feather pillow and dumping the feathers everywhere. You're not going to get all those feathers back. And that really weighed on me. And so I started to be a little bit more careful about the emails I sent. I would think, wait a second, am I sending this in anger right now? Or is this actually reasonable? Before I'd open my mouth, I'd think, is this really something I want to say? And let me tell you, I messed it up way too many times. I still mess it up all the time, but like I'm a little bit better. And I actually think that's really what clean speech is about. It's not about being perfect, right? It's about just being aware. It's about noticing. It's about just always trying to be just a little bit better.
I mentioned in the introduction about how I blew it with my old boss when I told him I ran into his father and how fabulous he was, and it caused him to speak negatively about his own father. I've done it in other times too, Sarah. I'm afraid your friend Adrienne here sticks that foot right in that mouth too frequently. But I once shared somebody's pregnancy news with somebody else. And aside from the fact that I wasn't supposed to tell, or I didn't know I was supposed to tell, the other person had fertility problems and she was in agony about it. I wonder if you ever find, given your prominence of position, now that you are a published writer as well, you're a double threat, you're a triple threat, you're a fabulous woman, you've got this incredible career, you have all of this education, you have this book. Do people ever say things to you that are the dust of Lashon Hara, things that they don't think are hurtful, but perhaps have wounded you? And what does that look like?
That is such a great question. And, I think that oftentimes the dust of Lashon Hara, it comes, like you said, from good intentions, right? You're connecting with people, right? You're trying to just connect and bond and be warm. You're not trying to hurt anyone, but then you realize, oh no, I actually did hurt someone. And, for me, I think sometimes what I see is that people have very strong opinions about what I should or shouldn't do with my life. And I'm always open to suggestions, right? But it's like, no, you should go to rabbinical school, and here's why. And it's like pressure and pressure and pressure. And it's like, okay, actually, I've thought a lot about this. That's actually not the path I want to take. Or you should go back into politics, and here's why. And pressure, pressure, pressure. Or, you should be pursuing this kind of relationship life, and why aren't you dating? Pressure. But it's like, guys, and again, I think it always comes from a good place. And I think when it's sort of done with a light touch, it's fine. But when people just become really insistent and they double down, it's like, you know what, this is it's not really appropriate, right? It's crossing a boundary, especially if I don't really know the person. So sometimes I think people want you to live the life that they're living or that they wish they were living, and they'll just kind of push it on you so hard. And I find that tough. But you know what? I have messed it up so many times myself. I mean, just everything you said about, I inadvertently disclosed something I shouldn't have disclosed, or I said this thing that really hurt this person. Girl, I mean, like countless times that I've done it, right? Countless times. And you just notice it, you learn from it and move on. You don't have to beat yourself up. It's not about shame and agony. It's about just like noticing and saying, okay, wow, I don't feel good about this. I'm going to do it differently next time. That's all you can do. And then you do. You really do. I mean, it's like the old, the thinking about tshuva, about returning and repenting, that, you've truly repented when you have an opportunity to commit the old sin again, and you decide not to, right? That's when okay, I've learned, right? And we learn.
In the Obama administration, there was a phrase that became famous, emblematic, if you will. When they go low, we go high. Can you speak to that statement and how it relates to the power of speech through a Jewish lens?
Absolutely. So that was a line that Mrs. Obama came up with herself. That was not my line. I cannot take credit for it. She came up with it, and I just typed it into the speech. And I love that line because I think it is just useful in every aspect of life. Because so often, and I will tell you, I am the person, when someone does something that frustrates me or upsets me or insults me, I immediately have the instinct to go low, right? To say to myself, I'm going to make them feel terrible, right? I'm going to be even more mean than they are. I'm going to shame them even more than they've shamed me. And you know what happens? It never goes well. I always regret it. I always feel awful afterwards. And I think what this line is saying, I think what Mrs. Obama was saying was, don't stoop to the level of those who are being cruel, who are being unkind. Like, don't make yourself worse. You rise above them, and that is the only way forward. And I'll tell you, I often get asked now today by people saying, well, when they go low, we go high. Yeah, that was fine back in 2016, but that doesn't work anymore, right? In this time where there's so much ugliness and noise. And I completely disagree with them. I actually think that going high is the only thing that does work, because if you just join into the name calling and the cruelty and the nastiness, you become part of that white noise, right? You don't stand out because there's so much of that ugliness around. But when you are kind, when you're decent, when you're big, when you're magnanimous, it's so unusual these days that it stands out, right? People are actually really moved by it. I think going high is the only thing that works. I really do.
You know what it shows in the way you conduct yourself. So once you found Judaism, after finally looking there, Sarah, how does your passion for Judaism, how is it impacting the trajectory of your life? How is it helping you build for your future?
What a beautiful question. I think it has shaped how I walk in the world ethically. I'm more conscious of my speech, and I'm more conscious of how often I speak in ways that I don't think reflect my best self. So that's something I'm really trying to work on. And finally, just the Jewish approach to words, I think, has been very powerful to me. We are close and critical readers, right? We read text seriously, we debate them, we mix it up. We don't just sort of take things unthinkingly. We try to learn, we try to find the best truth, we try to debate, we try to learn from each other. I mean, the whole idea of argument for the sake of heaven, right, is this notion that, we argue about the text we're reading, not to beat the other person, not to humiliate them, but to really find like the best truth, to really find the deepest understanding. And I've tried to take that approach into my life, to just really try to listen to other people and have powerful debates where I actually learn from them and they learn from me. And, it's something else I need to work on, because I tend to get very heated and excited and I want to win and I think I have the best point. And I catch myself doing that. I'm like, this isn't helpful. This isn't helpful at all. So I kind of try to keep reminding myself, no, argument for the sake of heaven. But again, I'm not perfect. It's something I really need to work on, and that's okay, day by day.
You're pretty darn close to it, lady. When I think about what you're talking about, this arguing for the sake of heaven, and I think of the houses of Hillel and Shammai, I think of that incredible hack that Hillel would do, that he would repeat to Shammai exactly what Shammai's position was. He would articulate it in a way that he felt that he clearly heard, and that Shammai felt heard, seen, and understood. And only then would he put forward his opposing position. So I'm going to give us both a blessing, because you and I share many temperamental similarities. Let's try and be more like Hillel. What do you say?
I am amen. Let's try to be more like Hillel. I need that blessing. That's a good one. It's a good one.
It was such an honor to have you here. Thank you for all of your incredible work and your spectacular book, which I have read numerous times now. It's just an honor to speak to you, and I wish you continued blessing on your journey as you unearth all of the jewels that is our faith and put them in your crown. Okay.
Oh, my friend, thank you so much for having me. You are a delight. And I learn so much every time I have a conversation with you. So thank you so much.
The feelings are mutual. Bless you. Thank you so much. And now back to the studio.
Next up, we're happy to welcome Wordwise Kid, Holden Demain.
Well, I think that simply honesty is telling the truth and not lying and not trying to deceive people. But honesty is more than that. Honesty is a lifestyle and a way to be, and something that really ties people together. And honesty is the foundation of trust, and trust is the foundation of relationships. I think that people are dishonest because short term, it's the easy way out. It gives you a quick solution, but that solution will be far outweighed by the consequences of that lie in the long term. when people lie, they think, oh, this lie is gonna go away. Oh, this won't come back. But it will, and it'll come back to bite you because when someone lies, they keep lying. Thomas Jefferson famously said, when one permits himself to lie, it becomes easier to lie a second and a third time. And it's true, you just keep lying and lying, but those consequences always come back, and lying will never be good, no matter how small. When you lie, you feel sick, and you feel nervous, and you feel bad because you know that it's wrong, and you know that it's not gonna work. And you know that you really shouldn't be lying. So you feel bad and you feel guilty, even during the action. And then after, you're thinking, how am I gonna be able to keep this up? How am I gonna do this? And no man has a good enough memory to make a successful liar, as Abraham Lincoln said. I've been lied to, and I think everyone has. And it feels bad to be lied to because you think you have a relationship with that person, but then that lie just can destroy so much of it. And it feels terrible because you feel like all your trust has been broken. And when you've been lied to, you don't want to be kind and make an effort with that person because you know that relationship, that trust has been broken. I'm Holden, and I'm keeping it clean.
Thank you so much for joining us for episode number 4 of The Talk Show. Today is the beginning of week 4 of Clean Speech Colorado campaign 2020. When we have a 30-day campaign like this, take a little bit of time each and every day consistently for 30 days. And in that way, we can genuinely transform the way that we speak. We can rid our speech habits and patterns of onas devarim, of hurtful words, and we can learn to replace them with positive. The point of the campaign is not just for these 4 episodes for these 30 days. The point is that we can make this a launching point to go forward and to create and to be part of a world of greater positivity with less onas devarim and with stronger, more loving, peaceful, and respectful relationships. And so if you tune in this week to the daily lessons, we'll talk about how you can make that happen and how the value of this campaign, you can carry it forward with you forever. If you haven't already done so, go to cleanspeechcolorado.org, where you can access all of the lessons themselves and catch up on any episodes of The Talk Show that you missed. Thanks so much for being with us. Have a good night.